What? I don't have an opinion.
We'd win all the minor battles. And on the last day, we were going to be found guilty and sent to prison. So, that'd be sad. I mean, I don't want to go to prison, you know. Might get to hear Johnny Cash for nothing, but aside from that, I don't think it's too good a trip.
Well, what do you think the effects of this trial are going to be?
Well, I think that the government is kind of trapped in the courtroom, and that the government loses whether we go to prison or not. If we win, of course, it's a tremendous victory. I mean, it means that we were able to convince 12 jurors who are not, you know, anywhere near a jury of our peers and are handpicked by the judge and by the federal system, which is fairly well rigged against us in that our lawyers can't even question the jury. It means we won before people that were really picked by Mitchell and Daley. And that would be a tremendous victory. However, we feel that an even greater victory could come if people all around the country decided that they too were part of this conspiracy and began to lend a hand and decided that it was in the best interest of their own freedom that this trial be stopped, and that they expressed that outrage in the streets and on the campuses in this country, especially on November 15th. So he was asking for a lawyer of his choice, and if he couldn't get him, finally was asking for the right to defend himself. And the press kept referring to these as violent outbursts. You know, I guess when a black man demands his constitutional rights in this country, it's considered a violent act. But Bobby ended up being gagged and chained, and of course that was symbolic of what's been happening to black people for 400 years. And then finally, when they realized they just couldn't shut him up because he was so determined to say what was on his mind and to be free and not recognize the illegitimate authority of the judge, that they just decided that they had to cut him loose and send him off to prison for 4 years, which is twice as much as any case for contempt ever. It's, again, another chilling aspect of our trial, and I think it points a direction in the future, which is that the government's embarked on a course of fascism. They're already talking, the government and high officials and the American Bar Association, things like that, groups like that are talking about similar trials to ours in the future might have to be conducted with the defendants not in the courtroom, which would be very heavy. I mean, you know, you get a note, you're sitting in your cell and you get a note saying report to the firing squad in back of Soldiers Field Stadium, you know. Oh, by the way, you came in second. Nice try, you know. And yeah, you don't even have a chance to confront your accuser.
Well, I take it from all this that you are not entirely impressed with our judicial system. What do you think about it?
No, I think Lenny Bruce, a famous comedian, had a lot of trouble with the courts because he swore. He once said that in America, in the halls of justice, the justice is in the hall. And I kind of reflect that. I think the judicial system is just a refinement. What's going on in our trial is a refinement of what happened in the streets of Chicago during the convention week. They employ massive overkill strategy. There are 20 to 30 marshals daily inside the courtroom. It has the atmosphere of an armed camp. The law against us is rigged, and Bobby's claim to his constitutional rights and our claim that this law violates our constitutional rights is the same way in which we claim that Mayor Daley didn't have a right to deny us a permit to march or to assemble in the park. So I think we're viewing the same type of dinosaur thinking in the courtroom that Mayor Daley employed in the streets of Chicago.
Well, what reforms do you support in American government?
In judicial system?
The whole government.
I don't support any reforms. Reforms seem to imply that the system itself basically is intact and basically sound. I don't believe in reform. I don't believe in dissent. I believe in revolution. I believe that the system has gone too far. It's abridged constitutional rights that the people have to amend it through voting. I think that was destroyed in the Democratic Convention and in all the conventions recently held. And I think then, quote Abraham Lincoln, then the people have a revolutionary duty to dismember and overthrow that government. And that's what I believe has to be done. That system is archaic, it's immoral, and it's brutal, and it has to be overthrown. It's that simple. Besides, it make a good movie.
Well, what did you do in Chicago in August of 1968?
Actually, I think the system is, our trial is a symptom of it. Their inability to gag seal, their inability to exert power over us in the courtroom, even though they have authority. Their inability to make us get on our knees and submit, to recognize the judge as a symbol of some high prestigious position. And that's only symbolic of what our generation is going through around the country. Their resistance to illegitimate authority, you see. It's a sign that those people in authority are dying of tired blood, and that system is sinking into the mud of history like some senile dinosaur. So actually, in our revolution, I see the government is more or less getting lost in the shuffle. It's just going to sort of wilter away.
Well, do you think that even if and when the guilty verdict is brought in, that it will be a victory for you?
No, I don't. That depends on what you do, and how you relate to it and how you feel. We try to make our strategy in the courtroom, you see, is to counteract their strategy of attempting to dehumanize us, make us numbers, make us Defendant Reuben, Defendant Davis, put it in this kind of decorum, orderly fashion, which is totally dehumanizing. We attempt to make the trial very personal. We try to relate to the jury on a very personal level. We try to relate to the spectators on a personal level. We try to bring our personal style of politics into the courtroom, and we try to bring that around the country. And it's to that extent, to the extent that you can relate to this trial in a personal way and feel that you are involved in this trial, to that extent we'll be successful. Because our slogan, "Stop the trial," you see, perhaps we can't stop this one, but if enough of an outrage is created, the government would think twice about, say, nailing the people who are working now on organizing demonstrations in Washington, because they're using the exact same techniques as we used in Chicago: television interviews, press conferences. They haven't got a permit as yet, so they're engaged in illegal activity. And if one person down there out of 300,000 or 400,000 people, spits on the ground, throws a rock or something, calls a cop a pig, that constitutes a riot. And, what's going on in the courtroom is a test of power, just as what's going on in the war between the generations, between the different nations in this country. And we'll see who'll win. We think we will. We think we have the future. I think that was exemplified in Nixon's talk last week, when all of a sudden he appeals to the silent majority. Silent majority is dead. They're silent, they're shut up because they're dead. And I think you basically have an empty strategy and an empty government when you appeal to people who are silent. It's not the silent people that are going to belong to the future.
Well, do you think that there's going to be violence this coming Saturday?
There's always violence. This is the United States of America, and Washington, D.C. is the capital of the most violent country in the world. Sure, I expect violence sitting in a coffee house. I mean, don't you expect violence? Do you go to high school?
Yes.
Well, are there cops in that high school?
No, we're in a suburb.
Oh, you're in a suburb. Oh, that's your white. I forgot. Right. Well, if there's some of them in your high school, you see, they're cops. And also in this city, there's a curfew. You see it on TV when you watch a movie at 10:30. It's now 10:30 p.m. Curfew is in effect. If you're under 17, be off the streets. That's called fascism. When you have curfews and ID checks and, federal government passing laws like the one against us, which says you can't cross the state line if you have a certain state of mind. Never mind carrying guns, little girls or little boys or something.
Well, we know you think that law is unjust, but are you guilty of violating the law as it stands?
No, not even that. What? The law as it stands says that we're guilty of crossing state lines with intention to incite riot. It's a question of intent. And I'm not about to say what my intentions are. That's up to Nixon and his psychoanalysts to figure out. And, why should I? It's my right to have my own state of mind.
Well, what is your strategy in the courtroom? A lot of defendants are jumping up and shouting, and what are you planning?
Well, that's not true. I mean, you're just going by what you read in the press, which is highly distorted. First of all, as I said before, Bobby Seale was demanding his right to counsel. He was only doing this when the other two lawyers had finished, when it was a proper point in the case for him to do this. The other times the other defendants have committed violent outbursts is when they refuse to rise for the judge. They remain seated. That's considered a violent act by the judge. He's made it clear that we've got over 2 years of contempt ourselves. Those outbursts have not occurred. I mean, sure, when the marshal started yanking Bobby out of the chair, and belting him around, everybody started to yell. Yeah, we protest that and protested vigorously when they arrested 2 of our lawyers and dragged them out of the courtroom and threw them into jail right off. We protested that in the first week of the trial. We don't aim to shut up. We don't aim to keep quiet. No, see, the courtroom's a lot like high school, like grammar school, 4th grade, where, good morning, Your Honor, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, you bring them a teacher, you bring them an apple, you do better, if you smile, if you be nice, if you dress nice, if you go clean, and keep your nose clean, and shut up and be nice, little kiddies, maybe you get a B in the course, Well, we're just like I was back in the 4th grade. We just sit there and we pray for recess to come so we can go out and fool around. It's just like school. It's a drag.
Well, do you think that the press is involved in this conspiracy?
I think that the press is on trial. Well, first of all, half the people testifying against us are newsmen. A lot against their own will. I mean, their recordings are dragged in as evidence. The film that they shot is dragged in. And they're caught in a bind because they're only allowed to answer the questions that the prosecutors ask them. And secondly, 3 of them have been undercover FBI informers. One guy who edits the TV news in San Diego, codenamed Tyro, I think his name was, and he gets paid $5,000 a year from the FBI to inform on subversive groups. He decides what news goes into San Diego on a TV station. Another guy, a photographer, Louis Salzberg, infiltrated peace groups in New York. Photographer for a news magazine. I know him well. He got $5,000 for a year from the FBI to inform. So in a very real sense, the FBI is the news media is put on trial. See, that's it. When you get into a situation like we got in the court, there's only 2 sides to choose. You're like the jury. You either vote guilty or not guilty. There's no such concept as fairness. That's why we think demands for a fair trial are absurd, and demands for fair coverage of the press and reporting. Reporting is just a bourgeois concept. People think that they can relate to it objectively, which is an illusion. I mean, especially in a trial like this, if people get involved. If they don't, they're inhuman. They're machines. And Bobby Seale, when he was tied and shackled and the marshals were pushing him around, he fell off the chair and he fell into the press section. So what do? They get down and they sketch the shackles and everything and try to record every sound he says. The most mechanical thing you ever saw in your life. And I think it's that attitude of non-involvement of the press that's on trial here.
Well, do you think that the shackling and gagging of Bobby Seale in any way helped your cause? As far as the general public goes, in sympathy?
I think, as I said before, it graphically showed the situation of the black man or political dissent in this country. But that was the judge that did that. And that was the system that shackled and chained Bobby. It wasn't all of us. It wasn't the defendant's idea. And besides, the defendants and the lawyers are going to jail for contempt because we objected to the treatment of Bobby. We're all going to prison at the end of this trial. I don't think people understand that.
On the news media, do you think that just one point of view is being expressed about the trial?
Oh, I think that there are splits. I think that there's some Life magazine, for example, call this less a trial than an act of vengeance. And I think that's what's going on. And there is a lot of that kind of reporting. But we have no faith in overground media. I mean, its role is to sell products and to support the people in power. I mean, well, there are two presses. There's underground press and there's overground. The underground press makes propaganda for our side, and the overground press makes propaganda for the government. And if they throw us a bone or two now and then and say, well, they're getting a raw deal, you know, it's because they realize to really clamp down too hard, you know, would result in a huge upheaval.
Well, you're not getting any fair treatment at all.
We don't want fair treatment. You know, we want propaganda. You know, we want newspaper guys dedicated to the overthrow of the system. I mean, the concept of fair reporting is as ridiculous as the concept of a fair trial. You see, it doesn't go directly to the root of why we're on trial, you know, why this law is passed, the role of the courts in this country, and asking for fair reporting, you see, doesn't go to the root of why the newspapers exist in this country, what their role is in a capitalist society, you know, what their relationship is to the ruling class, who makes the decisions around a newspaper. Is it the people that buy the newspaper, or is it the advertisers? Is it the board of trustees? What are their background? You know, it doesn't go to the root of those kinds of questions. So we don't want fair reporting. No, we want the press to lie. How's that? Lie or tell the truth. What's the difference?
Well, just so you get.
We want them to relate to it like they're on trial.
Well, that's the only way people know about this trial is from what they hear from the news media, which is really giving you kind of a raw deal because they don't really know what's going on. They don't really know the real story.
I don't think that's see, there's some images. First of all, it's in terms of images, and there's some images that come out of this trial that can't be hid. Like Bobby Seale being gagged and chained, a black man in a white man's American federal court. You see, people all over the world see that and understand it quite clearly. See, it doesn't matter, like the judge when he did it, he explained to Bobby Seale, he said, you must remember, Mr. Seale, that I'm only doing this for your own good to ensure a fair trial for you and the other 7 defendants. You see, that's a fair trial. They chained him and gagged him so we can have a fair trial. You see? So you're talking about that. You're talking about fair reporting, fair trials. Fuck it. We don't want
well, if your revolution succeeds, what kind of government do you plan to have? Or do you plan to have any government?
Wait a second, I'll look. I got it. It's under G. No government.
Well, let's talk a little about you. Where are you from?
What's the difference? What kind I want anyway? I mean, I just wanted a people like you. What kind do you want? Did you ever think about it?
I'm a reporter. I can't have opinions.
Yeah. You're sort of like a tape recorder, you know? They don't have opinions either. I mean, why do you want to be somebody without opinions? Is that like a long-spent desire of yours?
Well, I have opinions, and most of them are closer to yours than to the other side.
Oh, I doubt it. They're not closer to mine.
I think so.
God, mine are ridiculous. Why do you want them closer to mine?
I agree with you. On
well,
some things.
Well, how do you examine your role, then? You say that my role as a reporter, it's not to have opinions.
As a reporter.
Why? What do you mean as a reporter?
I have personal opinions, but I'm here to get a story from you and see what you think.
Well, I don't understand that view. You see, I think that's what's happening in American life. That's one of the evils of the system, that people go around with that kind of dehumanized attitude that, quite frankly, a lot of Germans had while they were salting away 6 million Jews in the oven. All legal and all according to the law. But there were a lot of good Germans that sat around and said, well, it doesn't seem right, and we're certainly for fair treatment of the Jews, you know. Maybe they ought to let them keep their teeth before they throw them in the oven. That would be fair. You know, stuff like that. You got to become a guerrilla fighter. I mean, you can't keep sitting on the middle of the fence.
Well, what do you
got to recognize that there are other high schools in Chicago in which there are already detention camps. There's already cops paroling the whole schools, and it's not about education. You know, it's about keeping people off the streets, they call it. Keep the kids off the streets. So you send them to school. You got to think about those things, because with your kind of attitude, you're going to go far. You're going to become very fair. You're going to become a fair reporter and a fair judge. Someday you might be a judge and you might be putting me on trial, see?
My grandfather was
and you might be using this tape recording against me. If you did that, I'd have to kill you. That wouldn't be fair, but it would be done.
Well, there is a new youth movement going on in this country. What do you think of such things as Woodstock?
I wrote a book about it called Woodstock Nation, so it's about my trip to Woodstock. I had mixed feelings about it, but mostly good. I had a good time. You ought to read the book, Woodstock Nation. It's good. It's in Technicolor. I did it in 5 days. I don't have a lot of time to write books, so I do them quick. We shouldn't waste time writing books and reading books anyway. We should watch television. It's more or less all there, the whole secret of how to do it. You know, how to communicate.
Do you think that Woodstock was of any significance?
I don't particularly care. If your concept is one of, say, cultural revolution, as mine is, significance really, one has to examine, one's more interested in the aesthetics of it. You know, did it feel good? Did it look good? Did you have a good time? I'm interested in revolution as a way of life because I think it's an authentic way to live and the only authentic way to live in this country. And it's fun. I wrote a book called Revolution for the Hell of It. That's where my head is at. For the hell of it, because it's fun, because there is no reason for doing it. There is no significance. You know? All there is considering the alternatives. And as I look around, the alternatives stink. You know?
Do you have any kind of following, a big following that'll help with your revolution?
I have about 7 million. They're all armed to the teeth and ready for the moment's notice. And in the summer of 1970, we're going to be at Cape Cod mining the beachheads because the Chinese communists are going to attack right up the Cape Cod Canal. That's their first beachhead. Oh, it'd be a good day. You ought to come out. Okay.